Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the IM, ESL IM, whatever it is, Shanghai C qualifiers replay cast that I'll be doing. This is a best of three, of course. We're in game number 2 between these two players. It is a 1-0 scoreline to our Protoss player, who's down at the bottom left-hand side. We'll introduce him in a moment. His opponent up at the top right, of course, is none other than the magnificent and wonderful #1 GM on NA for quite a while there, Frenetic Arrays Petraeus. He is known in this game as Dedication, though, just because it's a cool little thing he and some of the C folks have been getting into lately, is talking about dedication to esports. But anyway, his opponent down at the bottom left-hand side is our green Protoss player. Of course, he did an excellent job in the previous game with a little bit of a cannon rush that I still personally am not. I wouldn't say it was the best cannon rush, but it did a bit of a good job there. Dealing with the early expansion. It is Flash Blysk. I totally messed up both of those intros. I am absolutely fail at intros today. It's because it's a Tuesday morning and my hands are absolutely frozen right now. But one cool thing, of course, we did mention it in the previous game, is that we are using this new Game Heart interface, which does allow you to observe games using a very similar kind of Game Heart overlay, instead of using, so you don't have to use Game Heart maps to observe it as you would have before. I think it was really cool. It's a really cool idea to actually just sort of make an adaptation for it, and it should be really good to see how it goes. Of course, you know, interface files, they're not exactly easy to work with, but I know, like, a lot of people that I know and have spoken to are generally pretty good with working them out. I myself had a little bit of a go, but it's just a little bit above my level, unfortunately. So, you know, I am very happy to be testing out the Game Heart overlay, or interface, whichever one you want to call it. But let's talk about this game. Of course, in the previous game, Petraeus did recover from the cannon rush relatively well, and moved into a Roach, Hydra, and Viper style, getting his hive out very quickly. I think it was like at the 12-minute mark, he actually had his hive up and running, had the Vipers coming out. So wanted to get up to a very fast hive, just so he could have those Vipers out to protect himself against the 3-base Protoss, because generally the only real way that you're going to survive a 3-base Protoss without you know, without having your own crazy amounts of, you know, Ultras and even Corruptors and Broodlords and these kinds of things, is to have those Vipers out. They're a wonderful tool to have, and Petraeus was well aware that he did need to get up to that. But unfortunately, Blysk did a wonderful job with his Storms, and, or fortunately, in Blysk's case, I guess, he was able to do a wonderful job with his Storms, and was able to clean out the Zerg army while sending in a couple of proxy attacks with Zealots. Warp Prism doing an excellent job there. I think a lot of Protoss players are really good. We're going to start seeing Warp Prisms even more than we used to, just because of that little bit of a speed upgrade. It does really help. Like, I mean, you get to a stage in Zerg versus Protoss where if the Zerg is going for a turtle style, like the swarm host static defense style that we see people like Cats and a couple of other players go for, it gets really hard to deal with that. And one of the best ways is to send around a couple of warp prisms to try and take advantage of the immobility of the swarm host styles. So I think we are going to see the Warp Prisms get a little bit of a front row seat when it comes to the Protoss arsenal now, dropping in DTs and Zealots, and perhaps even, you know, we may even see some sorts of a little bit of the older school drops come about. There is a Protoss player in the C region named Alpha from Team MGG who does do some Immortal drops, and you know, he uses that, warps in some Zealots, and then tries to take out some key Zerg buildings, and that really helps him out in dealing with the Protoss, with the Zerg forces. So who knows, we'll see what happens here. Blysk has built up another 3 gates right at the front door. Judging by the positioning of this this pylon here, this is a place where a lot of people like to put a pylon so that they can put all of their gates down. Actually, we'll use the area tool. There we are. And what you do is you can put all your gateways over here, and it makes it a little bit difficult sometimes for an Overlord to scout this out. Normally, people will be very quick at identifying this Overlord comes along, because it always comes in this kind of direction, either up this way or across that way. and it can be pretty simple to pick it off, and that's why we normally see gateways over here. However, it looks as if Blysk is not going to go down that particular path. He is threatening with a couple of units at the front. The Mothership Core has come about. The Zealot putting a little bit of hurt on that Queen. And the Mothership Core may be able to get some more damage done there, but he is going to escape to the top side and just check out that the third base is indeed there. And there it is. So Petraeus is sort of... he's identified that his opponent hasn't really gotten too much going just as of yet. We can see just from the vision that Petraeus had. He scouted out there were no extra gates or anything like that in this region over here, and wasn't able to see what was going on inside the natural. But as we can see, it is going to be a double forge play, which I find really intriguing. It's a kind of style that you would be happy to see in Protoss versus Terran, where you get to see the Protoss player take advantage of the fact that Protoss units are very good with a couple of upgrades against Terrans, but it's rare to see a player go for double forge in this particular matchup, at least this early. It's sort of rare to see that. So Petraeus has scouted out that there is a robo facility being built up, +1 to weapons and armor, both on the way for Blysk right now. We can see the back at home for Petraeus. He's got a Spore Crawler up, just a little bit unsure of exactly what's going on, but do want to make sure that you're protected against DTs and air threats by having a couple of spores out, even a couple of roaches just ready to rumble with any units that might come about the third base. And even in the main, we've got the lair now popping up. So Petraeus just making sure that everything is all up to scratch right now. His worker count, as you can see down the bottom there, is up to 55 drones. We've got a couple more on the way. +1 weapons is also researching. So it is looking very similar to the previous game we saw from Petraeus. So I would not be surprised. Yeah, there's the roach speed is getting started. And in fact, we will get a Spire. So he's going to go for the, going to have some roaches out for any protection against early attacks, but then transition across into the mutas, which can be a really potent force, especially on this map. There's a few ways that you can abuse the mutas. You can dive into the third base there, then come back across this way and harass the main. And then even then, if you're going on that particular style of harassment, you can come down the back of the natural. It's a little bit risky to come into this position. Normally, a Protoss will have a a cannon ready to go to deflect anything that comes in there, but eventually it becomes something that the mutas can deal with. So we can see now that Petraeus is going to pick up a 4th base. I think he did see that there was the double. Yeah, he saw one of the forges, but hasn't seen the other. Interesting. All right, so he's seen that there is at least one forge. The Twilight Council now just finishing up, beautifully timed there by Blysk, so he can start up those 2/2 upgrades very, very quickly. So this is a play where Blysk is looking to play for a much later game. Sort of towards the mid to late is when he's going to actually look to attack, and I would say it is going to be a bit of a 2/2 timing here. We're starting to build up the Zealot forces. One thing we are lacking is another pylon or two. Petraeus is a player who is very, very good at scouting up, these proxy pylons and these kinds of things. We can see he's just going to run across to what could be a 4th base of Blysk, but there's nothing that's going to be there, so you won't need to worry about that. But at his 3rd base, Blysk is starting to wall off. We have a very nicely protected cannon just in the middle of a couple of pylons here, and Petraeus has now picked up a 5th base. So he's feeling comfortable at the moment, as we can see on the upgrades tab there. It's a little bit wonky. Of course, the game heart interface that we're using is still in testing at the moment, so that's why I'm getting the privilege of using it at the moment. But just a couple of slight issues there that I'm sure will be figured out eventually. But we can see that Petraeus is sitting very comfortably, 73 drones. There are 59 army units out on the map for him. And now, as we can see, it looks as if it is go time for Blysk. His 2/2 is just about to finish up very soon, but he has now encountered a small issue in the plan. Some units have made their way into the main mineral line, and they're going to destroy everything that was in there. And Lings have now made their way inside the natural as well. Blysk's economy is going to be absolutely in tatters right now as the probes escape to the 3rd base, but the 3rd even has very little protection there itself, adding in the photon overcharge on the Nexus. However, Blysk is just going to say, alright, I'm going to go with this. We'll just try and do what I can with a base trade. But unfortunately, as many Protoss players will be saying right now, I'm sure some of you will be writing in a comment or something like that saying you cannot base race against mutas without Storm or Archons. It is just insanely difficult to do. And we do see, however, Blysk is going to power his way through the natural base. The spine's going up from Petraeus, but unfortunately not in time. The Queen explodes in tatters of blood and gore there. We see, however, the third base is going to be up for a moment here, but not for too long. The cannons are down. The Stalkers that were here are also dead. The Planetary Fortress Nexus Cannon of Doom has just also gone down, and Blysk is in a whole heap of trouble now. His main base is in a lot of trouble. He split off his forces to try and deal with this base race. A very cute little force field on the ramp to block off those drones. But as we can see, I mean, you know, as soon as Petraeus has done the damage that he wants to do, which of course is going to be the three Nexi, just so that he can see where all of Blysk's buildings are. Once he's done with that, he's going to pick off a pylon. Then I would assume it's going to be the Nexus next, or he's actually just got them on attack command. But it's just going to be very hard for Blysk to defend this. He will have a few sentries. There is a small bunch of Stalkers here as well. Keep in mind he has 2-2, so it's not as if... sorry, he has 2-1. The Forge obviously got picked off halfway through. The Pylon got picked off. So 2-1 for Blysk at the moment, which is going to be... It's just going to render him very, very sort of... undamaging, I suppose. I don't really know what to say there, but it looks as if Blysk is going to try and make his way through here. Petraeus has set up a hatchery just up at the 12 o'clock, of course, and now as well, just over on the top left-hand side of the map. Blysk is going to attempt to set up another base, but ironically, the drones that were escaping from Petraeus are going to catch that Nexus, and that's going to give Petraeus enough information to make his way towards the top of the map. He's going to polish off the last couple of buildings that are left inside the main. There is a single pylon that is here, and another one over at the third base as well. But Petraeus has lost most of his base, and as we can see, the spawning pool last to die here, which means that Petraeus should be a-okay. If he needs to, he doesn't really have enough money to spend on it, but it is all good. He doesn't really need to make any units at this point. I mean, he's got a lot of units already out. We've got 16 meters, which if that wasn't enough to finish this game for Petraeus, he's got 57 lings, which are now chasing after some of those Stalkers, and Blysk has lost all of his buildings. And game number 2 goes the way of Frenetic Array's Petraeus here, and we will move into game number 3 in just a moment. Very standard and won't throw out crazy stuff too often. So we will see the 11-minute timing, the Mothership Core. Going to have a quick look and see what she can find in there, but a couple of Marines will poke about and try and defend against that. So we can see that the stim is now on